exposed my sister and her fiancé's deception at the altar. The wedding they planned to destroy ended up destroying them. I run a hotel at one of Boston's most well-known establishments. I'm a 45-year-old woman who's worked her way up from the front desk to my current position. I've dedicated the last 20 years of my life to this business. What started as a way to help my sister when our parents passed away has become my identity, my accomplishment, and my haven in a cruel world. I create moments, plant experiences, and make sure every visitor feels the warmth and elegance that have come to define our brand. This hotel is more than just keeping an eye on things or upholding standards. 3 years ago, we received our 5th star after I oversaw the restorations, rebrandings, and even a total reworking of the service philosophy. The employees here are like family to me. Many have been with me for more than 10 years, and they have seen me grow from a young, anxious boss to someone they respect and trust. They have helped me through the difficulties of raising my 35-year-old sister Rachel. They filled in when she needed me at school functions or during those trying adolescent years when she found it hard to handle our parents' absence. Rachel currently works at a nearby cafe. Our relationship has always been more than just sisterhood. I was 25 years old, just starting my management training program, and suddenly in charge of a 15-year-old who had lost everything when our parents perished in that horrible tragedy. I became her best friend, mother, and sister all at once. Her welfare was my top priority, and every choice I made and every promotion I sought was with her in mind. Our haven was the hotel. Rachel would complete her homework in my office during school breaks, while conversing with the housekeeping staff and picking up French from our seasoned concierges. As she grew older, she also helped out at the front desk during busy periods, and our regular guests loved her for her natural charm. Despite the difficulties of those years, we managed to build a life together out of the pieces of our broken family. I was never interested in romance. Dating felt like an extra hassle. Between running the hotel and making sure Rachel had everything she needed, there were a few flirts at industry gatherings and some dinners with business associates, but nothing that ever seemed worth pursuing. My employees would joke about putting me up, but I consistently refused. I would tell them that Rachel was my child and the Ethan, a 43-year-old, arrived at our hotel 3 months ago. He was a big change for us. Not only was he wearing a custom-made suit and exuding quiet confidence, but he also noticed things that most of our guests didn't. They were too busy on their phones or focused on their own significance to pay attention to their surroundings. Ethan watched and commented on the lighting, the molding, and the flowers in the foyer. He even complimented us on our attention to detail during check-in. His eyes met mine directly, even though I've stayed in hotels all over the world. This one is unique. You can sense the thought that goes into each detail. Those remarks struck a chord with me because they recognized the hotel's thoughtfulness and effort in addition to its beauty. When he inquired about nearby eateries, I found myself offering not only the customary suggestions but also my own personal picks, the undiscovered treasures I came upon on late-night strolls following especially trying days. We fell into what seemed to be a natural pattern throughout his 3-night visit after his meetings. He was back in the lobby lounge every evening, in an ideal position to strike up a discussion with me whenever I walked by. He asked me intelligent questions about my professional background, the hotels I'd stayed in, and my future goals. Ethan was genuinely interested in everything I had to say. Most visitors just do the customary corporate checkout, but he left a handwritten message on his last morning saying how inspiring it was to see my enthusiasm for the place and suggesting we carry on our conversation over dinner. He gave me his personal phone number and said he understood if I wanted to keep connections professional. There's so much more I'd love to learn. I spent hours debating whether or not to text him. When Rachel came into my office that afternoon, she saw that I was preoccupied and demanded to see the message. "You have to call him." She was more excited than I had seen her in years. "When was the last time someone actually took the time to get to know you, not just your job?" Everything changed after that first dinner. My enthusiasm for hospitality was similar to Ethan's. He talked passionately about his work in investment banking. He explained complicated things just as I saw the delicate dance of managing a premium hotel. Financial tactics in a way that made them sound like art. He listened to my mention of my parents with sincere compassion, offering his own stories of resilience and loss. We were walking around the waterfront. Most people in your situation would be burned out and jaded from dedicating so much of themselves to their families and jobs. However, you've managed to strike a lovely mix between professionalism and sincere friendliness. It's uncommon to find someone who genuinely appreciates the importance of creating experiences for others. 2 months into our relationship, over a private dinner at a fancy restaurant with a view of the harbor, the proposal was made. The ring was exactly what I would have picked for myself, elegant without being garish. As he knelt next to our table, Ethan talked while a string quartet played in the background. We talked about creating a future together. When you find someone who shares your beliefs and commitment to greatness, why wait? We talked about the details and shared our hopes and dreams for the future, like teenagers again. The wedding preparations moved quickly. I wanted to be the focus of attention for once in my life, so Ethan planned a big celebration. He was supportive when I had concerns about his idea was to pool our resources, which I'd saved for our honeymoon and future house, and you'd saved for the wedding. I take it that we're now partners. Rachel handled a lot of the wedding planning so I could concentrate on managing the business. She managed the guest list, set up samples, and communicated with vendors with a level of efficiency that made me think of myself. "You've taken care of everyone else for so long," she replied. "Let me handle this for you." Dinners and the unexpected coincidences of them running into each other when I was preoccupied with work-related emergencies are some of the indications that I chose to ignore. Everything fell apart yesterday when Ethan hurried off to what he claimed was an urgent client meeting and left his phone behind. I was in my office discussing the final wedding plans when the notifications started flashing up on my phone. It was still vibrating with incoming texts. I didn't mean to pry, but I saw a preview of a message. "My darling, I can't wait until tomorrow. She won't know what's hit her." Rachel was the sender. I opened the phone. With shaking hands, there was no password security. He never thought I would see it. I discovered later that my world was completely upended by what I had found. They had exchanged hundreds of messages dating back months before I had even met Ethan. In an early communication, Ethan had written, "She's perfect for our plan. Manager. Substantial savings. No real relationship experience. Plus she trusts you completely." Rachel had even more heartbreaking answers. "She has always put a lot of effort into looking after me. She never established a personal life. This will be far too simple." Everything had been planned by them. It wasn't by accident that Ethan showed up at the motel. Rachel had told him everything about me. Even my favorite wines and my routine. Every chance meeting, every sincere discussion, had been meticulously orchestrated. But their affair was only one aspect of the truth. Ethan's career as an investment banker was unsuccessful. He used credit cards to buy his luxury suits. His promises of an opulent future were false. And his tales of financial triumph were made up. I was his lifeline as he drowned in debt. Their true strategy was revealed in the messages. Use my cash to have an extravagant wedding. Then during the ceremony, shockingly disclosed their affair. They would make fun of me in front of my friends, colleagues and employees, and I would be left to deal with the consequences. With what was left of my money, they would vanish. Something else caught my attention as I read through their exchanges. Notes from Ethan's legal wife, Catherine, revealed that she knew who he truly was. Their texts were full of arguments concerning unpaid bills and unpaid child support, as well as his gambling debts. Now, as the light is rising, my workplace is covered with deep shadows. My hair and makeup crew will be here in a few hours, and Rachel is meant to be present, acting as the maid of honor and a loyal sister. I've also found out that Ethan is probably going to run through his vows, which I now know were lifted from romantic films. He's preparing for his role in this deception. The venue, catering, and flowers for this wedding cost all of my life savings, which I have been saving for the past 20 years while raising Rachel, sending her to college and helping her pursue her dream of owning her own cafe. However, I feel strangely calm as I sit here and watch the early morning light dance across the hotel lobby, which I have devoted my life to. They believed they were taking advantage of me. They betrayed my love and confidence. And they failed to remember that I wasn't naive. I've managed one of Boston's most prominent hotels for 20 years. And over that time I've learned how to deal with crises, transform setbacks into opportunities, and above all, play the long game. I've been on the phone to my lawyer for the past few hours. He's been keeping a close eye on things and making sure we're ready for anything. I also called Catherine to let her know what's going on. She needs to know what her husband is up to. And I spoke to the hotel security team. They're like family to me. I know I can rely on them. And they've already taken some action today. A very different kind of ceremony will take place in the exquisite ballroom where I've planned many flawless weddings for other ladies. I'll benefit from every detail they intend to use against me. Everything will go exactly as planned, just not in the way they had hoped. This includes the 300 visitors, the costly decor, and the meticulously scheduled timing. I get a little depressed when I see the bridal gown hanging in my workplace because of the dreams it symbolized. However, such fantasies were based on false information. I've always valued harsh realities over lovely. Rachel and Ethan wanted to make a scene that would stick in my memory. They wanted to make my wedding day a grand event. I've worked my entire career planning flawless events, and this one won't be any different. Things won't go as planned for Ethan and Rachel tomorrow. They're going to have exactly what they wanted. A wedding to remember. After all, I've learned one important lesson in my 20 years of hotel management. Even though the client isn't always right, they always get what they deserve. The city is now painted in tones of gold as the sun has fully risen. It's time to get ready for the once-in-a-lifetime performance. They think they're in charge, but they're about to find out who really runs this place. Unlike them, I never let my audience down. Update. This morning, Catherine showed up at my hotel office. She had a stack of financial paperwork, including proof of Ethan's debts, unpaid child support, and loans he'd taken out using their shared assets as security. She was a calm, composed woman in her early 40s with an intense gaze that matched mine. She put the documents on my desk and said, "He's been doing this for years. He's got a lot of stories about his wealth targeting successful women, but this is the first time he's worked with an accomplice." I mentioned Rachel's involvement and her voice caught a little. The following hour was spent going over messages and contrasting timings. The holes in my discovery were filled by Catherine's records. Ethan had there was a pattern of spending on the credit card, seducing women and then disappearing with their money. Rachel's involvement gave his scam more legitimacy, but that was the only thing that was different this time. My lawyer showed up and went over everything we had collected. This isn't just fraud. She's already prepared emergency petitions to freeze accounts and stop any attempts to transfer funds. She says it's a conspiracy, and with the evidence of their planned public humiliation, we can add emotional distress to the charges. Both of them continued to send messages throughout the morning. Rachel texted to say that she was happy to pick up the flowers. Ethan called twice to discuss last-minute plans, and his voice was filled with fake concern. Every interaction seemed like a new betrayal. When I didn't respond, I remained silent. A briefing has been given to the hotel staff about the security cameras. The plan is to record everything. Disguised as service personnel and police officers, they've been placed subtly throughout the hotel. They're waiting for my cue. They're ready to take action as soon as the fraud evidence is made public. Catherine went into further detail about their marriage. She told me how Ethan would go missing for months at a time. Then he'd come back with long-winded justifications and vows to reform. She's been doing this for years. She's been gathering evidence and waiting for the ideal time to take action. It was like giving her the last puzzle piece when I contacted her last night. She's the cosmetics artist. I set up in my own suite an hour ago to coordinate with Ethan for their big performance. Rachel texted that she would be late, which is a great example of how fantasies can quickly turn into a weapon. The bridal gown is hanging ready when Ethan's parents first arrived. They had no idea what the sun really was. I reached out to some reporters who I pretended were wedding photographers. They were eager to capture every moment. Ethan won't be aware of Catherine's presence until the ideal time, as she'll be seated in the front row. The required paperwork has been prepared by her lawyer for prompt action. The frequency of Rachel's messages are getting more frequent, and there's a hint of anxiety in them. She asks if you're okay and says you seem distant. If it weren't so bad, the irony of her worry would be funny. This is the result of 20 years of sisterhood, though not for the reasons they intended. The location is turning into the ideal. Instead, every detail they plan to embarrass me with would double as the background for their publicity. When I look at my reflection in the office window, I see someone who has spent decades controlling chaos rather than a victim. They believed they were planning the ideal scam, but they would soon discover who is. I'm actually in charge of this operation. Update 1 just now. Rachel did show up. She rushed into the bridal room with an armful of flowers and that phony smile that I can now see clearly. She embraced me with what seemed like real warmth and said, "You look stunning. How long has she been this good at acting?" As I observed her in the glass, she started to fiddle with my veil and talk about last-minute things. As her eyes met mine in the mirror, she said, "It's unbelievable that my big sister is finally getting married. You deserve this happiness for everything you've done for me." If it weren't so tragic, her performances would be stunning. Ethan has been sending texts to keep up the pretense until the end. He can't wait to see you, love. With 300 chairs in the right places, crystal chandeliers sparkling, and white roses everywhere. Only a few members of my team know what's really going to happen, but they work quickly through the preparations. Ethan won't notice Catherine until it's too late. She's already sitting quietly in a corner, a few minutes earlier. Her lawyer showed up with paperwork. The police officers who are pretending to be employees have verified their identities. Rachel never stops trying to spend meaningful time with me. "Do you remember the time we spent planning your wedding as children?" As she adjusted she asked about the clothes. She's right about one thing. This will be remembered more than those childhood fantasies. It's even better than we imagined. I can see visitors coming in through the window of the suite. It's people I've known for decades, colleagues from the hotel business, and even some of my regular visitors have become like family. They're all dressed up for a love celebration, but they'll actually be witnessing a very different event in the foyer. Ethan's parents are welcoming visitors, and his father is gushing over his son's successful investment business. It'll all come crashing down just as I imagined it would yesterday. The string quartet is getting ready and rehearsing in the wedding march, which will never end the way it always has. I just got confirmation from my lawyer that everything is set up legally as soon as Ethan and Rachel take action. A series of some unexpected things are about to happen. Rachel is still my loyal sister, helping me with my shoes. She gave me a hug and asked if I was nervous. I just smiled, realizing how right she was about how important this was. It's normal to be quiet before such a big moment. We have 30 minutes until the ceremony starts. According to the latest message from the wedding coordinator, Rachel went to ask Ethan a few things, probably to finalize the plans. I'm on my own in the bridal suite, surrounded in half an hour. They'll find out how right they were to worry about my attention to detail. Update 3. I started walking down the aisle as the wedding march started. Ethan played his role as the successful, attractive groom, filled with emotion as he stood at the altar. The scene briefly resembled the fairy tale ending they'd intended to ruin. Rachel, still wearing her maid of honor outfit, came forward as I was halfway to the altar. She said, "I'm sorry, but I can't. Let's keep going." Her voice echoed over the perfect acoustics of the ballroom. "Ethan and I are in love. I'm pregnant with his child." The audience's gasp was exactly what they'd hoped for. Just as expected, Ethan's face changed from stunned groom to regretful lover. I realized they'd practiced this moment. Their amazing surprise had been planned to perfection. Ethan said, walking over to me, "Grace, you've been nice to us, but Rachel and I was calm and clear when I interrupted." I pointed to the back of the room, and the big screens that had been used for wedding pictures sprang to life. I was in charge of the announcements from here on out. All the meticulous preparation, the premeditated deception, the jokes about my confidence, and their planned betrayal were on full display. Catherine got up from her chair and walked slowly in the direction of the altar. Ethan's expression turned pale. She said, "Hello, darling." Her voice was piercing, startled, quiet, and surprised to see your wife here. There was another round of gasps when the word wife reverberated around the ballroom. The policemen who had been pretending to be employees took their places with paperwork in hand. My attorney came forward. Financial information started to slide on the screens. The theft, the fraud, the complex strategy they had devised. Ethan Thompson declared the lead detective. "You are being held on charges of grand theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Miss Rachel Anderson, please remain where you are." Rachel's expression fell flat. The self-assured smile gave way to fear. She reached for me and pleaded, "Grace, please, you don't understand. He said that once we had your money, we'd be together." I finally expressed my rage. I said, "Once you had my money, you'd run away together and start a new life with the savings I earned while raising you." When Ethan attempted to flee, the hotel security guards were prepared. All the exits were closed. His father got up and demanded answers. He received copies of the evidence. His son's dishonesty passed, and the list of deceived women. Instead of replies, Ethan's assets were frozen and divorced. Papers were served to him by Catherine's lawyer. As the cops carried Ethan was away in handcuffs, the visitors watched in stunned silence. Rachel stayed motionless, tears running down her cheeks. She muttered, "What's going to happen to me?" I said icily, "That depends on the district attorney." She was escorted out of the ballroom by 2 officers. The click of handcuffs marked the end of 20 years of sisterhood. My hotel personnel navigated the turmoil with efficiency, guiding guests to the reception area. It was surrounded by the flowers and decorations intended for a completely other event. I found myself feeling oddly at ease. I was standing in the empty ballroom afterwards, even though I was still hurting from the betrayal. It was kind of satisfying to see their carefully laid plans fall apart. Catherine's case seemed strong, and Rachel was helping the prosecution. There would be several courtrooms where justice would be served. A month has passed since the wedding that never happened. Ethan and Rachel decided to work with the prosecutors after realizing how strong the evidence against them was. The court case went through more quickly than we thought it would. I was given $50. The court awarded me $50,000 in damages from Ethan, but getting it will be a completely different story. The judge's remarks regarding their plans, premeditation, and the breach of family trust were especially severe. Ethan is currently facing criminal charges in 2 additional states, and Catherine's plea for retroactive child support was also successful throughout the proceedings. Rachel made multiple attempts to get in touch with me. She said in one message that she knows she can never make this right, but please, you're the only family I have. I erased all of her messages. I haven't replied to any messages. I thought I knew the sister I raised. I was wrong. My lawyer says Rachel might avoid jail time by cooperating with the prosecution, but she'll probably still be subject to probation and required reparation payments. She used to talk about wanting me to be an aunt, so the fact that she is still carrying Ethan's child feels like a cruel joke. Once more, the hotel has become my haven. I was really struck by the loyalty of my workers. During the entire they've been great at supporting me. They answer the phones, deal with any troublemakers, and make sure I can focus on what I do best, which is managing this hotel. Word got around about the wedding and the arrest, and it's actually improved my reputation. It takes a lot of strength to handle that kind of betrayal with such dignity. One of my regular customers even wrote me a long letter about it. Ethan's parents expressed their sadness and embarrassment, but I turned down their offer to pay for the wedding. Money was never the point of this. It's about family and trust. I've already transformed the intended improvements for the honeymoon room into a brand new corporate conference space. I've kept in touch with Catherine, exchanging details on Ethan's current legal issues and offering support for one another's court challenges. She has turned into a surprising ally who genuinely recognizes the extent of his dishonesty. We're both better off knowing the truth. She told me that no matter how much it hurts, I still have the I've got a bridal gown hanging in my wardrobe. I'm not sure if I should donate it, even though I should probably. It's a reminder of what I learned about my own strength rather than what I lost. The woman who purchased that outfit was incredibly naive in her trust. Now the owner is aware of this. I've kept Rachel's old room ready for her over the years, and her belongings are still there. I finally packed everything into boxes yesterday and gave storage a call. It will be held for 30 days. I sent her the info via my lawyer. Anything left over after that will be donated. The betrayal itself is no longer the hardest part. It's recognizing how poisoned 20 years of memories have become. Was Rachel always playing a part, waiting for the right moment? Or was every Christmas picture, every milestone, celebrated in a late-night chat with her genuine self? I've gone back to work, finding comfort in the familiar routines of hotel management. I'm putting all my energy into new projects and improvements. My staff have noticed that I'm more focused than ever. I was invited to give a presentation on crisis management at a hotel management conference last week. I hardly recognized Rachel's handwriting when I looked at her signature on the settlement documents this morning. On the other hand, I hardly recognized her anymore with a few pen strokes. 20 years of sisterhood came to an end. I have lost my anger. I'm simply fed up with bearing the consequences of what transpired. My true family, my employees and devoted customers need me. And the hotel needs me too. I've got to start looking after myself for the first time in 20 years. I sometimes think about Rachel and the unborn child she's carrying. I know I made the right decision, though, when I think back on the messages I saw. The premeditated betrayal and the years of deceit after burning certain bridges ought to remain ashes. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.